Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this is the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we are back with another episode of Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts, and joining me for that is Tanner Ward. Tanner, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited.
All right, before we get into your players here, you want to take a second to tell everyone where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find myself on Twitter. My personal page is at Tanner Ward 7. The podcast is ADP Dudes, the Average Dudes podcast. So you can find us on Twitter at ADP Dudes, the letters ADP. And then you can find us on YouTube. The page name is at @ Average Dudes podcast, or the easiest way to find us is just to search ADP Dudes, same as the Twitter handle. And you'll be able to find our YouTube page, putting out a lot of content. We'll be recording later this afternoon as well. So we'll be putting up more stuff throughout the week. But basically, yeah, we're trying to get that fine line of, I feel like a lot of big sites focus too much on like your too small leagues. They spend too much time talking about first round only players. But then you have some really good people out there but they dive almost too much in for the casual fans. So we're trying to find that fine line to get good content out there, but not just focus on first round stuff, but also talk about stuff that's a little bit more relevant to kind of your average fantasy player.
Yeah, it's tough. You're right. A lot of podcasts, they seem to only talk about the players that go maybe the first 4 or 5 rounds. And then you don't hear about anyone else. And that's where it's
Right.
really won or lost. But I find the problem with that is even like ADP wise, once you get past round 5, not necessarily round 5, maybe it's more like round 6 or 7. When you get that deep in the draft, throw the ADP right out the fucking window. If you
Right.
got a player, just take them because ADP doesn't mean anything. Just
Yep.
because someone took, like for me, Roshan Johnson's the guy I target everywhere. But depending on what leagues I'm in, he goes 103 in some leagues, he'll go 75 in other leagues. So what difference does it make? Just, take your guy where you want him, where you're comfortable with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we're going to look at later today, it'll be out next week, is kind of what's your different strategy with different formats. So what are different players you're going to target based on your bench size, or what's a position, rostering a second quarterback or second tight end if your benches are deeper, or are you just going to get one of those guys if you have a shallow bench, and how do we kind of approach those? So that's kind of the stuff we're looking at, but it's a lot of fun. We definitely try and have a lot of fun with it. So I hope you guys can check out our content.
Sounds good. I guess let's get into it. Your first player, your sleeper, is loading. There we go. It's Miami rookie running back Devon Achane. Fantasy Pros projections for 2023 have him as RB41, 462.6 rushing yards with 2.9 rushing touchdowns, 20.6 receptions for 180.9 receiving yards, and 0.8 receiving touchdowns. Why is Achane your sleeper?
So I feel like the biggest thing is when Dalvin Cook got released from the Vikings, it was kind of a natural fit for him to go to the Dolphins. And I feel like that's really where the steam kind of let off with Achane, because he was kind of really hyped up whenever everyone was in rookie season mode, but then it felt like we were just waiting for Cook to go to the Dolphins, and we stopped talking about Achane as a potential league winner this year. Now we see that Cook is all but signed the contract to go to the Jets, and here we are sitting with Achane, Wilson, and Mostert out in Miami. Nothing's changed from when we were really hyping him up earlier in this offseason. I mean, I haven't really adjusted to my rankings yet myself. He's still my RB38, but I can definitely see myself putting him into the much higher 30s, I guess the lower 30s for where he's at. His ADP sitting just outside 100 right now, but he just feels like he's, almost free, that double-digit round target running back that you can go get, and the payoff there is going to be substantial. We've seen it with Wilson and Mostert throughout their careers. With health, I don't ever really like to project injury, but there are certain players out there that have just shown over the course of their career they do struggle to stay healthy. Achane's in a prime position, what should be a very high-scoring offense. to go out and make a huge impact for you on your fantasy team.
I hope that at some point after his career, it comes out that Dalvin Cook is a fantasy player, and all this was some elaborate troll just because he was out there drafting Dolphins players and Jets players at a discount, and it was just all some elaborate ruse so he could turn a profit. But you never know. This is a scary one for me. I loved A-Chain coming out. I love the talent. I do not love that they brought back Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. I get it. They're both old. They're both injury prone. Neither is really exciting. I hate buying into these rookies in their rookie season. Even like the Gibbs and the Bijan, I don't think they get as much of the workload to themselves as everyone is projecting. How many times have we seen it with Javonte where he came in and, he's just going to dominate Broncos backfield touches, and then he had to fight Melvin Gordon for 3 years. I don't think A-Chain has to fight them for 3 years. I think he's a great dynasty asset. I think it's probably he's the bell cow next year, although he doesn't really project as a bell cow, but I think he gets the larger role next year. But this year, I see this as going to be in a 3-way committee backfield, and it scares the hell out of me. I do have some shares of A-Chain because I love the talent. I love the offense. And when or if one of those two veterans goes down, I think he's a home run swing. I just don't want to get too invested because the year I go overboard loading up on Devon A-Chain is the 1 year Wilson and Mostert stay healthy, and I know it's going to happen. So.
Yeah, and if everyone stays healthy there, then you have a 3-man committee. But I feel like A-Chain's explosive enough. He doesn't need the big workload to be a fantasy asset for you. And I'm not saying he's going to be a top 12 running back, may not even be a top 24, but he can be that guy to get you through bye weeks. He can be the guy to be your flex player if Wilson and Mostert stay healthy. If one of them goes down or he just earns himself a larger part of that work share, then he can definitely outperform his ADP. I just got him in a best ball draft. Now this is best ball, but I did take him at the 1007. So if I'm getting him in the 10th round, he doesn't even necessarily have to win the job outright this year to pay off what his ADP is. So that is why I really like investing in A-Chain this year, because you're getting it in the double-digit round pick, and the payoff can be so much better than, like I said, what the actual cost is.
Yeah, he's RB 41 in Fantasy Pros right now, 108 overall. So I agree, he's pretty much free. And if you look at the range he's in, I brought that up on the screen, right? Yes, I did. Okay. Pirine, I don't mind, but once we got Charbonnet, Damian Harris, Elijah Mitchell, Tyler Algier, Jerick McKinnon, Deontay, I'd take A-Chain over any of these guys, with the exception of maybe Kendre Miller and Roshan. But even those two, they're all three are kind of in a similar situation here. They're kind of in a 3-headed backfield. They're rookies, and they're basically going to need injury or suspension in the case of Kendre Miller to really, pay off on their year one, to really explode year one. I mean, to pay off on their ADP, it shouldn't take much. They don't have to be great, like you said. So
right
at cost, I do. I like the rookies in this range of my drafts. The only problem is I find the drafts I've been doing, those 3 rookies are going significantly higher than this range. And it's the Singletary, Zeke, Foreman's falling off a cliff. But like a lot of these veterans and even Algier, Mitchell, they're going much later. I find Charbonnet, A-Chain, Miller, Roshan are going by far the highest out of this group here, even though it says they're all going in anywhere from 108 to 130. They have Roshan at 146. I find he's going closer to 100 than he is 150. So not sure how accurate the Fantasy Pros ADP is currently.
Yeah. And I like to implement Hero RB where I can. And so I find myself grabbing a lot of Charbonnet in the 8th, but I love targeting Charbonnet, Kendre, A-Chain, all those guys. If I go those 3 in a row, 8, 9, 10 with my Hero RB strategy, I'm going to be a very happy man at the end of that draft.
I find, before we move on to the next player, I find that the rookies too also depend heavily on league structure. Like if I'm in a league where I've got 10 bench spots, I know I can afford to sit on a couple of these rookies. If I'm in a league where I have 3 bench spots, 4 bench spots, I know chances are I'm going to end up having to drop some of these guys before they hit. Especially, that's what rookies do.
Right.
Wide receiver, tight end especially, but the running back and wide receiver, they all tend to come on strong at the end of the season. So if I can't spare the bench spot, I know I'm not going to be able to be patient. So I pass on some of these guys. So like I said, it's also league format dependent for some of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Next up, we have your breakout, Sky Moore, Kansas City wide receiver, second year, projected by Fantasy Pros as wide receiver 72, 36.2 rushing yards, so negligible, 45.4 receptions, 591.2 receiving yards, and 3.3 touchdowns. I don't know what to make of Sky Moore coming out of college last year. When I did my rookie, my little spreadsheet there, I had him as one of my 7 can't miss prospects. So far he's missed, so I'm not sure if he was just one of the, if he was one of the ones who fell through the cracks and one of the busts I'm going to just have to accept, or if he's just a late bloomer. I've also, the other one who never hit last year was Trey McBride. So I'm interested to see if my formula is going to come through and Sky Moore and Trey McBride are going to hit for me, or if they're both busts. So you've got him as a breakout. So I assume you're thinking he's a year 2 leap here. What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I was looking at what I want to do for sleeper breakout, I wanted to try and target someone to talk about that I didn't think a lot of people would be picking. So I kind of wanted to get a little different and bring up names that, like I said, I didn't think not everyone would choose.
Mission
But
accomplished.
but since I selected Sky, because I wanted to highlight that someone on this Chiefs offense at the receiver position should be a very formidable fantasy asset this year. And since I sent you that I want to do Sky Moore as my breakout, I have seen nothing but Chiefs highlights of all 5-6 receivers really having great days at camp yesterday and today. So, but I still think if I'm going to put my money onto one guy to be the true breakout this year in that Kansas City offense, it's going to be Sky Moore. Look, I feel like I have at least heard about it quite a bit already this offseason, but I want to bring it up here. Rookies have had a hard time picking up Reed's offense. It's a difficult offense to pick up on. Going into a second year, they invested the draft capital into him, but early to clear out of a small college, I feel like second year is where we're really going to see him shine. He has the talent to do it, but yeah, they kind of have a logjam of receivers there that it's not necessarily, he's not the clear cut choice to
Yeah.
run away with being their wide receiver 1. But again, I see him as the talent to do it. Right now, I have him as my wide receiver 43. He's kind of in my range with Rashad Bateman, Michael Pittman, who I'm very low on this year, and some other the rookies like Quentin Johnston. Those guys, he's kind of in that range. We've seen some production out of the Chiefs offense last year. Juju Smith-Schuster was the big one. Before his concussion, he was having a really nice fantasy season. He had 8+ targets in almost all of his games. Let's see, 5 of his games. Let's see, looks like he was inactive week 10, but through week 9, 5 of those games was 8 targets, and he had a 12-target game in there as well. So, someone's going to come out of this offense, whether it's Rashee Rice, whether it's Richie James, who's been becoming one of my really favorite last round targets in a draft. I really think one of them is going to come out. But Sky Moore, like I said, if I had to put my money on one of them to truly have the breakout, it's going to be the second year guy, Sky Moore.
He is the guy, like I said, I was on last year. I'm out on every other Chiefs wide receiver. I've been out on Tony all along. The fact that people are buying Tony is idiotic.
Yeah,
the only other one I have a lot of, I like Sky at his cost. The only one I have a lot of because I loved his talent and I love his current price. The injury scares me. I have a lot of Justin Ross. I've stashed him on IRs and taxi squad, so I'm hoping that could pay off. I think realistically, it's got to be Moore or Ross. They're the most likely to hit here. We see in the ADP, Sky is wide receiver 58, 147 overall. This range is interesting. You see a group of guys I wouldn't touch, like Mooney. I don't want Mooney at all. I don't want Gallup. I don't want Jones. And then you see some upside kind of dart throw types. Sky Moore, Nico, Mingo, Rashee Rice, Rondell. So it's an interesting range. there are some guys I like, but there's a lot that I don't like. What do you think of this range?
Yeah, this is the dart throw range, right? You just close your
Yeah,
eyes, throw a dart, and whatever name you hit, that's who you're drafting. But to me, Sky Moore feels like out of this entire group, he has the most upside out of any of them. That's why
yeah,
I am targeting him a lot where I can get him in drafts. Because you're getting as your depending on what strategy you go through, but you're getting him as your wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 if you go kind of heavy wide receiver early. But yeah, it's kind of like A Chain. You're drafting him at a point where he doesn't even have to truly break out to pay off where what capital you had to spend on him, but he has the upside to have that great year for you and be able to be a guy you can plug in your lineup at a flex position throughout the season, not have to really worry about him.
yeah. No, I agree 100%. Like I said, kind of hoping he hits because he's kind of been my miss from last year's rookie class, and it's bothering the hell out of me. Pretty much everyone else I liked turned out to be pretty decent last year, and I kind of hope Sky Moore hits so I can pat myself on the back. All righty, let's bring up your final player here. Of course, it's taking a second to load. Oh, I don't like this guy at all. Your bust. Tampa Bay wide receiver Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a Saints fan, and that was on a personal level. I can't stand him. He's a goofball. I'm not even talking fantasy relevant. Not to mention the fact that he did nothing all year and then put up 42 points once people's teams were eliminated. But Fantasy Pros projections on Mike Evans, wide receiver 26. Negligible rushing stats projected, 71 receptions, 982.6 receiving yards for 5.9 receiving touchdowns. Why are you out on Mike Evans?
Yeah, if you go and listen to most of the ADP episodes, we kind of have a running bit on the podcast that I hate Mike Evans, but I'm pretty much out on all Bucks this year that aren't named Chris Godwin. I think Godwin's the only one in that offense that's going to
Yeah,
get enough targets to really be fantasy relevant this year. But the Bucks offense is going to have a drastic change in pass attempts. Brady, these pass attempts were over 700 the last 2 years, and then it was the low 600s his first year in Tampa. But his target share now, because of the high pass volume, his target share wasn't that high, but 17-3, 15-8, 17-8. If he stays around that 17% target share, I have them projected for 536 attempts this year. That's 91 targets.
yeah,
I don't really see, we saw Evans last year have that decline where he didn't have that great year until week 16, where he was
yeah.
10 catches for 207 yards. But
Thanks,
his
Mike.
games, yeah, his games before that 3 for 29, 5 for 83, 4 for 44, 4 for 59, 2 for 31. Start to see him decline in production a little bit. And now you have an offense that's taking 200 pass attempts away. I think he's just kind of going to be a guy that is going to get drafted by a lot of people because they see Mike Evans is still on the board and they're going to take him, and then they're not going to know what to do with him in season, right? It's like, I can't really start him. He hasn't been doing anything. And he might still have one or two big games in him like we saw in week 16 last year. But I don't think you're going to get constant production from him. And I'm like I said, if it's not Chris Godwin, I'm just out on the Bucks offense in general. The last piece I wrote for the league winners was a sleeper breakout bust. And my bust was also a Buccaneer, is Rachaad White. So
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I hate the Buccaneers, but I am just
But you
pretty
hate
much
the
out on.
Buccaneers. That's what you're telling
Yep,
us.
pretty much. Yeah, I can't wait to get tweeted
I
that
mean,
I just hate the Bucks.
when you're going into a season and your best case scenario is that Baker Mayfield wins your quarterback job, that's a scary proposition.
Yeah.
For me, it comes down to that's it right there. Baker's terrible, and so is Kyle Trask. But if you look at both of them, if they do have any success, it doesn't match up with the role Mike Evans plays. Just Mike Evans, he needed the ultra accurate deep thrower like the Brady or the Rodgers. This is not going to work out with Baker or Trask. This is going to be a disaster. I think I know every year he's the consistent 10 touchdowns, 1,000 yards. I don't think he comes anywhere near that. I think he has a career low in pretty much every stat across the board. I don't remember what he finished as last year, but wide receiver 32, I don't think he comes anywhere near that. That's what he's going as right now, 78th overall. And that I think is propped up by, like you said, a lot of Oh, well, I know that guy. It's just name brand recognition. I don't want
Right.
anything to do with Mike Evans.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that I have him ranked as close as what he's listed as there. He's my wide receiver 35 right now. I actually thought I had him buried a little bit more than that, but I'm
I'd
still
still
not
take all these guys over him. Most of them,
one
anyways.
100%. Marquise Brown, I think Marquise Brown and Chris Godwin are kind of in the same boat. Bad offense, but I think they're just going to get enough targets that they're still fantasy relevant. I'm still on the Traylon Burks train. He's been my guy since he was drafted into the NFL. I think the DeAndre Hopkins signing can actually help him have a good fantasy year. So that's another guy I'm going to be talking about a lot over the next 5-6 weeks getting into the season. But yeah, there's just no way I'm touching Evans.
I agree. Yep, he is someone I'm definitely going to avoid. All right, Tanner, do you want to take another second here before we wrap it up and tell everyone where they can find you and your work once again?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to Twitter, follow me at Tanner Ward 7, and follow the podcast at ADP Dudes. And you can see when we release all our new episodes. You can find our episodes Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and then find us on YouTube at Average Dude Podcast, or like I said, just search us at ADP Dudes, and you'll be able to find us there, putting out a lot of really fun content.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for joining me. This has been Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts with Tanner Ward. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thanks again, Tanner, and thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep, take care.